And I guess it was giving me a notification that you were on, and
Oh,
I
okay.
never heard that before. It sounded like some little kindergarten sound or something. I don't know. Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Scenes Convos, where we talk about music production, audio production, and moments in between. In this episode, I have my good friend, coworker, and amazing saxophonist, Amarylis Sueing. We'll be talking about music production, audio production, music education, of course, no words nostalgia. But what's unique about this conversation, as most of us musicians and audio engineers, we shop at Sweetwater. She used to work there. Let's get into the conversation. So, how you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm pretty good. The second day of the new year is is it the second? Yeah, it's the second day. I'm running off fumes honestly right now because of the New Year's Eve. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, same.
It was pretty crazy. So do you normally do like the New Year's Eve celebration gigs or whatever?
Not, I don't. Those are the gigs I decide not to do after
Yeah.
having so many gigs all through December.
Yeah.
I take off the New Year's Eve for myself, and usually I stay at home
Right.
and watch the Peach Drop or New York or whatever. And
Right. Right.
then if I'm still up,
Right.
then
Come
we'll do a
on.
little cheers toast. If not, I'm in the bed.
Right. Same. Same. I had like this church service marathon. I was all over
Ooh,
kind of from the morning till up until like 12:30. And so
ooh.
it was crazy.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
First
crazy.
time and probably the last time I do that. So
Yeah. I'm, I'm good on anything that requires me to be out
yeah,
that late.
no, I
Right.
get it. So you from, I know we met because we're colleagues, but we met in a school space. Are you from Atlanta or are you from Indiana?
I'm from Atlanta,
Okay, then got you.
born and raised. I
Born.
ended up in Indiana for a year working because I took a job at Sweetwater.
Right, right, right.
So that's why I was in Indiana, which was an interesting experience, but it's no place like home. So
Indeed. How was that in regards to like what you're doing now as far as even teaching? Like
it
how,
actually helped a lot. I learned a lot being at Sweetwater, even more so than like the studio or doing other things because they sell everything. You got to know a little bit about everything. And that was a lot of stuff I didn't. So learning how all the equipment and then, like different manufacturers, how they make stuff, how they market stuff, what's overpriced, what's slept on, all that kind of stuff. That helps me teaching a lot and just recording, knowing what to buy and, kind of a gearhead anyway. So
right,
it
yeah.
it was cool for that reason.
One thing I do tell students is like stay curious
Yeah,
because it's one of those things where like you never know. There's always this latest and greatest, you got
always.
all of these different plugins that are coming out and just being able to know how it affects this audio signal versus the next
Yeah,
is important, but you'll never know if you never tried it. You know what I'm saying?
that's a fact.
And
That's a
I'm
fact.
I'm still like steady learning different compressors, like what they're doing.
Yeah,
It's always a mystery for me, And
same. It's always something new. They change them. They're like, especially these now that AI is integrated into everything. It's crazy.
right. So what's like your normal signal chain for your horn?
Oh, so I used for that one for this record I used the SSL
Hmm.
Big 2 audio interface. So like the pre's in there. It's pretty good. Quiet. That's really all I'm looking for. And the
Mhm.
rest of the processing, I have a signal chain that I use on most of my recordings. But typically that one's for alto. I kind of made a little few adjustments to it when I switched to tenor. But I use a compressor that's actually stock in Logic. I use another compressor that I got from UAD in one of their chains. And
Nice.
then, of course, a reverb, that's stock. I really prefer to use a lot of stock stuff because that's how what I came up with, when I have no money, when it was just make this
Yeah.
sound good with what came with your software. So that's really where I spend most of my or use most of their stock plugins to create a sound because they're really good. And then a
Right.
couple extra ones just for a little sauce. But that's pretty much it. Is a stock EQ, two compressors, one stock in Logic, one from that I got, from UAD, and then a reverb. And that's really it. That's really it. I mean, I
You
can
hit a
look at it.
point that I think, and not just students, but just I would say even like from a novice or just the hobbyists that do audio engineering. You mentioned stock.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people think that you can't do a lot of great things with what you already have, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
like what I mean, of course you mentioned funds or whatever just calls you, but so you wasn't a part of the crack, you know, the crack club, you know. So yeah,
No, I was. When I was at Sweetwater, I gave them my check right back. Like whatever I made, I just gave it right back to them. Like you could just keep it. You can
right,
have it. So I was on that drip of like, oh, this is new. Let me get this. Let me try this. And it took me a minute or a couple of broke months to realize like I don't have to spend my whole check. Um, I can still use the stock compressors because if you understand the functions of what it's doing,
right.
then you can manipulate it to get it to where you want it to go. I think with all these plugins now, a lot of people are looking for just like a one button click, just make it sound great
Mhm.
without a lot of effort, without me knowing what to do. Just click here, and then I want it to be perfect.
Right.
And it just doesn't work that way.
No,
So
it doesn't.
it just doesn't. If you understand what each of these things do, what each knob does, what each fader does, then you can make a stock compressor make your signal sound however you want it to. And
Right.
so I think that's what people lose is they get caught up in the commercials and who so and so is using this, so I must have to use this.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
For a lot of times, if I'm working on a record where I get the session to mix, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times they'll have plugins on there that I don't own, and I'm just like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I got to go on there to get this to just keep the integrity of whatever they mixed already. But a lot of times that's the only reason why I get those
Wow.
plugins, and I'm like, okay, I can do the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
But no,
I
but
tell them to
that's
do a bounce in place, okay?
right. Yeah,
So if don't send me anything with plugins on it, yeah, especially to get the whole session.
right.
I'm quick to call back like I need a wave,
Right.
okay? I'm not
Yeah.
gonna buy anything new.
There's that other piece as far as like the novice or the hobbyist that will take tracks just however they come
Yeah.
and be okay with that. And in the previous interview, we talked about this. Is like, getting 50 session or 50 tracks that are like audio one, audio two, audio three.
Ooh,
I'm like,
man.
oh,
Those are the worst.
don't do me like that.
Don't do me like that.
'Cause,
Come on.
you
Not
know,
audio 1 through 56.
yeah, no, it's
That's
like, are
crazy.
you serious? Like, just throw the whole hard drive away.
Throw
Like,
it away.
mixing is like objectivity, and then there's a point where it turns into subjectivity. And when I'm there, I don't like the song anymore.
Yeah.
'Cause you know what I'm saying? So now I got to listen to these different parts just to label.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
not even just trying to get a feel for it. I got to label it. So I'm I'm at that point. So what do you do in that situation? Like you get files like that. Like what's your
whew. I'm 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 hot, but I would at that point just bite the bullet and run it like solo and label. And
yeah,
I've had to do that with some sessions before. Not that it was audio 1 through 56, but it was the name of the microphone instead of what the microphone recorded.
right.
And so, like, okay, I see you went through some effort during this tracking process, but when it comes to to mixing something efficiently, I have to set it up first,
Mhm.
even just moving tracks around.
Right.
Because the way people record stuff is wild. Like you got the vocal and then the kick drum and then
Mhm.
another vocal and then the trumpet. Like I can't look at this session like this before it's right.
Oh,
Exactly.
no.
So I'll take the time to set it up to where it's supposed to be, to relabel things. At that point, I try not to listen to the song because I am going to be sick of it by the end of it. So I do a solo with XOR, the XO mode, so that, just one track at a time. And then I'm just labeling, rearranging, and I'll take a step back after just doing all that like clerical work, right?
Mhm.
It's really what it is. It's
Right.
almost like data entry at that point.
Mhm.
And so once I do that, then I can start the mixing process. That's just editing. I got to decipher what's here first before
Right.
I can hear this record at all.
Yeah.
And then I just add that as that's part of the hourly wage. Since
Right.
you would have cost less had you cleaned it up before you sent it to me.
Right.
The end.
Right. Yeah. Like, what are we talking about? I sent you the track. Give me your process. Like, because I didn't give you a ton of details. I just sent it to you pretty much done. Or at least I want to say I had like demo horns on there.
Mm-hmm.
And
They sounded good too, also.
yeah, and I may have like even blended those in with the
Yeah,
uh
that's what I do even for my records, is blend in just to
yeah,
get it fuller if I don't want to like stack 1,000 times.
right.
And also having like a brass sound, because I'm playing saxophone.
Right.
So for my records, I like to have a little horns too. So I blend samples with me recording.
Yeah. So as stated, we used program horns for this project. I use it as a demo, but actually it worked for the actual record. So in most cases, I will use session horns. That's a part of a native instrument bundle. Let me pull that up real quick and make it active. And on session horns, instead of me using their version of a reverb, I kind of coupled it with the deverb as well. About 22% on the wet dry, more dry than wet. And this was the session horn right here. These are the settings. Pretty much use standard settings with the trumpet up. But I used the full section, kind of gave it this Latin preset, and it's the full section. So let you hear it. Here it is with all of the horns. It just added some color to the overall horn section.
But when you send it to me, first thing I do, anything that I'm going to play on, is just listen to it top to bottom.
Mhm.
And man, this is such a dope record. Like I was just, as soon as I hit play, I was just vibing like, yo, I love it. I love it. And when I just genuinely love a song, it's just easy. It just like takes off from there. I almost like know what to do and where to go.
Right.
The horn lines I took from what you already had there as inspiration, just doubled that in several different parts, and then put the solo on. And I went through a few different solos of like how I wanted to approach it and how I wanted to like kind of match the vibe of this song, and let that be the focal point. Because it didn't need too much. It's like just a little sauce on top. Like it's such a great record. So you made it easy, honestly.
It was the and I think I took the first take. If I'm not
Oh
mistaken, I
wow.
took the first take. Like I want to say you sent two.
Yeah.
Just like that's the one right there.
Okay. I love that.
And
I did
again, we
like
were talking
five.
about labeling earlier. Like you labeled everything. I'm like, take one. That's the one. So instead of me putting the saxophone solo inside of the subgroup for the horns, I wanted it to stand out independent of the horns. So I treated it a little bit different because it's a solo, right? As we stated, I took the first take of her solo. It's recorded very well. Check out the solo with no compression, no EQ. And so didn't do a lot because it was recorded well. You heard it with all of the plugins, bypass, of course, even a reverb bypass. I used a little dip around 200 hertz and a little compression where the gain reduction was around about -3. A little aggressive than I normally would go with putting the compression on saxophone, but it sounded good. It didn't sound overtamed or overprocessed at all. So yeah, this was an amazing, amazing, mature solo. To what you were just saying, you had like this mature approach
Mm.
song. It's like you didn't spaz out on the track.
I know it is so. As saxophone players, it's so tempting to, especially I only got 4 bars, 8 bars, and I want everybody to remember what I played. But in that short time, if you play every note that you know, it still doesn't translate. Like,
Mhm.
and it would not have fit for what the vibe of this was. So
Right.
I really had to like chill out. Right.
Right. We'll say that for live. I'm thinking even of the introduction, it almost felt like what is his name? Dave, is it Dave Brubeck?
Oh yeah.
It put me in the mind of Dave Brubeck. It was just like when you came in with that first da 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 da. I'm like, okay. So to me, things like that, it causes me to lean into the song and listen versus somebody just blah, da, 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 da. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, okay. I'm intimidated. I don't know if I can take
Right.
any more of this.
Am I smart enough to hear this?
Right,
Right.
yeah, yeah. And I'll never forget when I was at Berkeley, um, for my master's program, the one of the professors, it was like the vocal production class I was taking.
Mhm.
He he listened to a song that I had produced and he listened to like a minute of it and just hit pause and he was like, why don't the lyrics start, why do you always gotta start on the and or the
Mm.
or the E?
Mm.
And he's like, you never start anything on the one or the three or the two. It's like, why are you doing that? I was like, I don't know. It just feels right.
Right.
It feels right. And he was like, you know what? He used this term esoteric, and I
Mm.
never heard it in that way. I
Mm.
was just like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I almost got offended.
Yeah.
Um, but it made sense after he kind of gave me some references, and then I went back and changed that whole song. At the
Wow.
end of that term, he said, listen to it. He's like, yeah, that was you. He was like, you the one that had to. He said, so you went back and changed. I said, based on what you said, because I said, to me, I never heard anybody tell me any different.
Mm.
I've been in spaces and places where it's like, and maybe it's the church boy in me.
Mm.
I think we like all of this dope stuff, all of this stuff that really doesn't, it clashes and it works in gospel music,
Right.
but in
Yeah.
other genres, it's like,
Doesn't.
it's like,
Gospel music does the most. Like,
yeah,
here's a chord, here's a chord, here's a
right.
chord, here's a chord.
And so I never had anybody tell me that, but like, it's, I'm glad that I had that experience before coming into what I'm into right now, especially with teaching, especially with production, and then doing it in a certain space. 'Cause you don't never want it to be where even sending the track to you to where it's like I don't really understand this because he's playing this weird chord over C major, and it's
Right.
like very appreciative, very appreciative of what you added to the track, the elements to it. I'm hoping we get a chance to work again
I
very,
would
very
love to.
soon. Definitely working on something in spring. And
Okay, cool. Let me know. Thank you so much for the opportunity for, reaching out to me. There's 1,000 people that play sax in this town and all over, but I appreciate you extending it to me and I really enjoyed it. So I definitely look forward to whatever you got coming up next. Let me know. I'm in there.
all right, so there it is. That's the episode. I'm headed off to class. But if you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, and tune in for the next episode that'll be coming next week. All right, y'all have a good day.